Welcome to 44 and 1. I'm GVizzle. This is Tempest. I'm in the middle of a Reddit comment war. And it's fucking ridiculous. Okay. Somebody posted a screenshot of something saying, and I think it was probably satire, but I bit and made a comment. And they were like, oh, fuck English translations. I never read English translations. I read Don Quixote in Spanish. I read Dante's Inferno in the original Italian. I read this Dostoevsky book, I forget which one, in Russian, even though I don't understand the languages. So then I commented, I was with a laughing emoji saying, you flipped through the pages is what you did. You didn't read anything. I didn't think that was going to be a controversial statement, but a lot of people are like, no, he read it. I'm like, the definition of read is to see and comprehend. Comprehension is a big point. They were like arguing that you don't have to comprehend something. And they're like, you can sound out the words. I'm like, you cannot sound out the words in a language you don't know because you're applying English language rules to that language. Probably they don't exist. I was like, let's take GH, for example. I was like, pretend you don't know English. How would you read the words laughter, slaughter, night, ghost, tough, through, thought? You don't know the words, so you can't. I thought that would be the end of it. It has been going on for a day and a half.
Wow.
People are like, no, you can still do it. You can sound out. And then someone else said, well, if it's Russian and it's in Cyrillic, there's no way you'll be, like, they're not even letters that you recognize. You can sound it out. So I, being a petty asshole, went to Google Translate. I typed in a sentence. I translated it into Cyrillic Russian. And then I put it onto my Reddit thread. And I said, sound this out, bitch. It was implied. I didn't put it in there. But it has been continuing for a day and a half. People cannot come to terms with the fact that if you were to see a book full of words that you did not understand, you did not read that book.
Fucking idiots. Do you know what I think they're confusing? They've heard this thing probably from psychology or something. And then somebody actually made a video about this showing this in action. That when you hear two or more people talking, right, even if it's in a foreign language or if it's in like the Sims voice, you can get the gist of the conversation. Not in terms of the detail of it, but you can get the, has the husband done something wrong, or is the
You're
wife
reading
upset?
their body language and their tone.
Yeah, exactly. And then so these people seem to think that applies to the written word because they're fucking imbeciles.
It's like if someone said to you, I read Don Quixote in Spanish. Oh, was it a good book? I don't know. I didn't understand it. But what did you read? What did you do? And some of the whataboutery is ridiculous. Oh, what about reading a scientific paper? You wouldn't understand the scientific paper. But you'd understand the words. You would understand the words.
It'd be in English, wouldn't it, you fucking idiots?
Even if you didn't understand the science. Someone else was like, so you're saying you can't read a word that you don't know? I'm like, yeah, you can read a word you don't know. If it's in English, you can sound it out. You can't read an entire book full of words you don't know in a language you don't. I didn't think this was going to be a controversial topic, but it has spurred a significant amount of debate, and it is a fucking absurd.
What is wrong with these people? That's what I want to know.
I don't know.
Like, I struggle to comprehend that people can be just that stupid, that unbelievably thick.
But then somebody else was like, so if I pick up a comic book that has like a graphic novel that has no text, it's just pictures, you're saying I didn't read it? I'm like,
that's not the same thing.
Technically, you understood, you comprehended, right? Part of the definition of reading is that you see it, you comprehend it. You can still comprehend it.
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, it's the most fun I've had in a Reddit comment thread, because usually I comment on like some really misogynistic shit and that just makes me angry. But this one was kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's just like, how are these people? How? I don't know.
How do they function in their daily lives? What is their day-to-day conversation with real life people like?
But is it such a desperation to be inclusive that you don't even make sense anymore?
Yeah, I think so. That's where a lot of the progressivist stuff is going. Like having that thing that we heard about the other day, how Boots, the chemists in the UK, their parking spots for disabled people, they've changed it from disabled to less abled, just because they think that's more inclusive. Fuck you! No, I'm disabled. I'm not less able. Them that?
I would like to know who told them that.
I think somebody that doesn't have a fucking disability.
That's
what I reckon. Yeah.
That's usually the case.
It's gone full circle now, where it was like, okay, so we need to be aware of where Western democracy started, and particularly in Canada and the States. Like, you have a lot more issues than we do with that stuff. But it's like they've gone all the way from recognizing the history and the atrocities committed all the way around to talking about segregating schools again. And like, what?
And it's there's just so little actual research done. Like, it doesn't, you don't have to take a deep dive into this to get it. It's like, so there was a woman there was an article about this woman who her boyfriend has terminal cancer. So she broke up with him and now she's running marathons in his honor.
I heard about that.
So it was linked to an article. And in the article, it does very explicitly say that the majority of times it's men who leave their partners when those partners get sick, and women usually are the ones to stick it out. But that was the article said that pretty explicitly. But there was a bunch of guys in the comments who didn't bother to read the article and just started shit talking men about how men would never do that. And it was like, did you even read the article? And then one guy was like, no, I wasn't that interested. And then wrote 4 paragraphs to me about his thoughts on it that I didn't read because I wasn't that interested. But like, they're not even reading the article and then making all these like, fucking women are doing it.
Solzhenitsyn writes it in the Gulag Archipelago that when men got sent to the gulags, their wives went with them. When the wives got sent to the gulags, the husbands didn't. And generally that was because the man earned the money and then supported the family, so he had to stay with the children in Russia. But also, the other side of it is that there was a lot of men that just didn't want to go to the gulag just to support their wife.
I mean, and then the choice, I don't think the women would have gone either.
And then the other thing I found funny with this, the woman ditching that her bloke because he got cancer, and like everything was me, oh, my life's horrible because my partner got cancer. The funny thing is that with these blokes in the comments going, women are bitches, horrible and stuff, it's like, no, guys, 2 things can be true at once, right? The majority of men are assholes and would leave their wife in that situation. This woman is, as an individual, is a complete shithead and a waste of human skin. You just don't do that to someone you're building a life with.
But like, why would they write an article about it? Why? And then like the picture they use in the article, she's like, she's so chuffed with herself that she's running this marathon.
And then she's completely gaslighted the bloke as well. Like, he thinks it, like, you know, it's really good of her to be doing this marathon. And, you know, he's all like, oh, I'm sorry about the effect that I've had on her and all this sort of shit. And it's like, no, that woman let you down. You lived together. You were building a life together, and she walked out on you. The first hurdle.
Although, I mean, I can't remember where they're from, but I know that there's been like this trend in the United States that a lot of married couples will get divorced when one of them gets sick, but still stay together. But they do it because if they're divorced, then the medical bills don't bankrupt both of them.
That's a bit different.
And it's sad that that's the state that it has to be in. Like, it's really, really sad that people have to make that decision to do that.
Oh yeah, they need a different approach to their healthcare. But that's not what happened here, though. No,
she's just a bitch.
Cunt.
Hello, buddy.
Man, talking. Okay, so we've shit on a woman. So let's let's
start not strong.
Yeah. Do you want to shit on another woman, or do you want to shit on a B&B owner, Airbnb owner?
Oh, dealer's choice. We'll do both, I'm sure.
Okay, we'll do the Airbnb first then.
We just found out we were being watched in our Airbnb. I'll make this quick. There were 15 girls staying in a house for my friend's 30th birthday. One of our friends was like, guys, I'm really paranoid. I feel like there's cameras in the house. And we were like, girl, you watch way too much TikTok. There are no cameras in this house. You're just being dramatic. But she whipped out her flashlight and she went investigating. She looked in like every single shower head, all the picture frames, doorknobs, everywhere in the house for a camera. And she found one. In the bathroom, one of the outlets was faced directly to the shower. Okay, so first of all, this outlet did not work. You couldn't plug anything into it. You can see in the top here, there's nothing. Looks totally normal. And then in the bottom one, look at that little camera. Girl. Anyway, we freaked out, called the cops. I was really embarrassed personally because of the absolutely atrocious things I was doing in that bathroom at the night prior, but that's besides the point. Anyway, we left the house, the cops searched the place, and they got him. Like, part of me was not convinced it was real, and then they found the cameras, which means we had been there for a night, like showering and things, and that footage sees the light of day. Anyway, does anyone know if we can sue, or like, what do we do now? Because...
What the fuck?
Isn't it? It's one of... I always get that feeling, like, you know, I don't do anything weird, so I'm lucky there. But
she was just showering. Like, would you still want like you showering to be spread around the internet?
I mean, maybe it's because I'm a man. I find that really funny of this idea that's like, oh, let's see what's happening here. There's just me going, right, shower time. And that's all they're gonna get. There's nothing juicy.
I mean, at least it was just the one. It could have been a lot worse, right? There could have been one in all different bedrooms, and just people are so skeevy. Yeah,
innit? It's fucked up. It's weird. And it
like,
is...
you gotta imagine, like, I wonder if like they were doing Airbnb for a while and they were like, oh, we should do this, or if they only started to do Airbnb because they wanted to get paid for, not even paid for, they're getting paid to record people because they're just like these unsuspecting people in their house.
And I wonder what they're doing with the footage. Like, do they have like a little ring and then they sell off the videos to their customers? Do they have a live subscription account that you can sign up to watch these people? That's weird. That creeps me out. Like, the idea of just some like weirdo recluse guy filming me having a shit, I find that quite amusing.
But selling that footage.
Yeah, if he's making money and B, showing it to other people, that skeeves me out. Set up the cameras. I think their intentions behind it, that's when it can get really, really gross. You know,
it's never with good intent.
No, but it's like on a spectrum of grossness, right? From like weird, isolated, pervy old guy to like a full-on ring of criminals with really disgusting intentions. And like it's like a level of crime that just goes off the radar, you know?
Yeah, but no part of it starts with, oh, I just want to make sure they're safe.
No.
Like, there's
no, I'm
I
not.
just want to make sure no one slips and falls in the shower. There's none of that.
Yeah, no, I'm not minimizing any of this. I'm just saying that, like,
also heard this mirror thing that if you put your finger up to a mirror, and I believe if there's a gap between the reflections, then it's a normal mirror. But if there is no gap, then it's just a one-sided mirror. So there's likely either a camera or a person.
I don't know how true that is. I've seen that before as well, but haven't had any mirror experts saying yes or no either way. So
mirror experts.
Yeah.
Let's see.
They had a...
While it's not completely accurate, it's accurate enough because it's due to variables like lighting and the material which the mirror is made. So it could be difficult to tell, but you can still tell.
Years ago, there was a short drama series on ITV, one of our channels. Obviously, what the fuck am I talking about? What was I saying? Yeah, no, we had like a...
You were just mansplaining TV to me.
Yeah. We had like a 4-part drama series once, like one of those one-offs. And it was about this guy. He had like a spare apartment and he had this female friend and she was having an affair with some bloke. And so he was like, oh yeah, sure, you can use my flat. And she's like, oh, that's so kind of you. You're such a good friend. And he's like, oh yeah, just be careful of that mirror that's right in front of the bed.
No.
Yeah.
There was a terrible Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Hilary Swank movie called The Apartment. And it was kind of the same. He wasn't, I don't know if he was actually, I can't remember if he had set up cameras or if he would actually just, I think he was drugging her and then sneaking into her apartment at night.
But, oh, nice. Happy days.
Change the lock. Every time we go somewhere, change the locks.
Yeah. Put a chair under the door handle or something. We had a guy here who, I can't remember if I spoke about this before. But the woman who runs the TikTok account Feminism for Everyone, this is one of the things that she's campaigned about, is that sex offenders, people who are on the sex offender register can run to be a member of parliament in the UK. Yeah, and this guy, he even signed a petition, her petition. Yeah,
You
and
have
then
told me about that guy.
he recorded a woman for like 4 hours naked asleep on a bed.
Yeah, you did tell
And
me about that.
Yeah, fucking disgusting bastard. Man. Yeah.
People are gross. How come we always end up talking about gross people?
Because they're so interesting.
So did you hear about what's happening in Michigan?
Oh, hang on. Can you hear that?
What was that?
I forgot to tell you about it. This is a test of emergency alerts, a new UK government service that will warn you if there's a life-threatening emergency nearby. In a real emergency, follow the instructions in the alert to keep yourself and others safe. Visit gov.uk/alerts for more information. This is a test. You do not need to take any action.
We've had those.
Yeah, it's a new service. This is the first test today. No one wants it. Everyone hates it. And we know that our government's going to abuse this somehow because they're fuckers. Like, they're, you know.
We have those too. And then people were complaining about Amber Alerts because it was waking up their sleep or interrupting their TV shows. And I was like, a child has been taken. Like,
yeah, Amber Alert is a bit different.
Yeah. You can stop watching CSI for a minute. You can stop solving an imaginary crime to try to help solve a real one.
Yeah. One of the things that one of the problems people have with this is that I can't use my phone until I press OK.
Yeah, that's the same here.
Yeah, that's fucking wrong. Like, so it's almost.
Why is it a big deal? You get it.
I'll give you an example. No, I'll give you an example. In Australia during COVID, they had a system set up where I don't think this was all Australia. I think it might just been Melbourne or Adelaide or something. That if you're out and about, you'd have to use your mobile phone, download an app, and take selfies of you to show where you are. And they were tracking. Yeah, they were tracking people's movements. That's what they're going to be able to do eventually with this shit.
Damn.
Yeah, it's fucked up. And like when I tell people like, yeah, I had a lot of problems during the COVID with a lot of the measures being put in. Some of them were dodgy as fuck. People don't know about stuff like this, like what happened in Australia and things. Like, there's a lot of fascist shit going on, and no one's being told about it. Don't shrug your shoulders. This is important stuff.
But even if people were told, they wouldn't care because it's not happening to them. Nobody cares until it's happening to them. They don't realize that what happens elsewhere eventually trickles down to them.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Well, they should care.
Or they think their government would never do that. Like, I'm sitting here in Canada and like, oh, they probably wouldn't do that.
They have done. They was it the people who donated to the trucker rally thing? They were getting their accounts frozen.
Yeah, I think so.
That's fucked up, man.
So back to what I was saying before I was really interrupted. In Michigan, they have now passed a law that unmarried couples can't live together.
In where?
Michigan.
It's a bit odd.
How would they even enforce that?
Yeah, and does that mean that people can't be roommates?
Apparently, or like you would just tell them that this is a roommate.
Yeah. That is so bizarre.
I know.
It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, isn't it?
It's no steps forward. It's all backward steps.
Yeah.
Unmarried couples can't live together. What's next? Women have to wear pantyhose with open-toed shoes. Like,
yeah. All right, so we've got. It's not all going to be hating on women today. I've got 3 blokes after this one. So.
Okay, you've been doing work.
Yeah, I've been downloading clips off TokTik.
TokTik. The Wish version of TikTok.
Yeah. Right then, here we go. You'll love this one.
Are you a good wife if you get married and then you gain 100 pounds? Is that good wife? I'm just asking, am I off base?
I mean, was there a reason for that? Like, did someone pass away?
It doesn't matter the reason.
I mean, you're not a bad wife for gaining 100 pounds for a reason.
So, okay, let me just say. So I lost my job and refused to work as a husband, but I did it for a reason. Am I a good husband? You know, I lost my job, but I was depressed.
Like,
she's a piece of shit.
She really fucking is. I hate that woman so much.
Like, being if a qualification of being a good wife is maintaining your figure, then does the same ring true for men? Does that make your husband a good husband if he maintains his figure? How is that even relevant? And she made even in a relationship.
And she made a false equivalency. she compared putting money into the home and having a job with personal appearance. Like
Because
those two things are different issues.
Because I think in her head, married women don't work, right? And like maybe there's more of that in the US than there is in Canada. Like I don't know a single woman who is, oh no, I do know like one stay-at-home mom because their children are young. But every other woman I know in my life contributes equally to the home. Maybe that's not the case in the US because everyone's talking about like men bringing home the bacon and men being the one making the money. But like in this example, he's out working, she's staying home. So her job, presumably at staying home, is to cook, clean, and stay in shape for her husband, who's worked such a hard, long day in the mines. And when he comes home,
Yeah.
But like, why do people continue to take relationship advice from people who are not in relationships? It's like that physician heal thyself. If she was such a fucking catch and such a prize, wouldn't she have men beating down her door to snap her up?
I think this is one thing I disagree with you on, because I don't think you need experience of a thing to be able to talk about it.
I don't think you need experience of a thing to be able to talk about it, but there needs to be some sort of, if not, like, I don't need my oncologist to have cancer, but he has studied cancer, right? I don't have cancer thing. But if I'm going to take relationship advice from somebody, they either need to be a studied academic and expert in that field because they've done the work, or they have a solid background in a relationship, because you can just make shit up. She's just making it up.
But I don't think that experience is a good metric to judge it on. The quality of the information, you need to judge the information on what they're actually saying. Judge it just for that.
Garbage.
Yeah, totally. But I have more recent experience at dating than you do, right?
Yeah.
Even then, my dating experience is 10 years old now. But I can still, and I never really use dating apps or anything like that, but I can still talk about them, and I can still talk about the value that they could hold and how you could use them better.
Yes, but you're not going to be making your entire platform about talking about dating apps. Like, her entire platform is just pretty much shit talking women for not living up to a standard that she herself doesn't live up to.
No, she doesn't. She's but like, this is why I think it's more valuable to focus on what she's actually saying. Okay, so this next one, right? This is bloke time now. So this bloke, so what's happened here is that not only has he caught being a bit inappropriate, saying something to somebody and made a judgment about the way they look, but the woman he's with isn't his wife.
Why did you say konnichiwa to me?
Because I have a Chinese business in Hong Kong. Get up. Next question.
Am I in Hong Kong? Am I in Hong Kong?
Next question.
Where are you working? Where are you
No,
working?
I'm being polite. I'm speaking to you. Get up with your camera.
Who are you?
So he said something racist to her.
Yeah, so basically he saw an Asian, so they're in London, they walked through the underground, and he saw an Asian woman, so he said konnichiwa. And his defense for saying hello in Japanese to an Asian woman is that he has a business in Hong Kong, in China.
Trying to understand the motivation. Was he actually thinking, oh, I'm going to impress this woman with my mad language skills? Or was he like purposefully knowing he was doing a racist thing and then tried to backtrack after he got busted?
Yeah, it's hard to know what his intention was.
The one thing he should not have done is start holding hands with the woman when he knew he was being recorded. Like, is this your first day on the internet, buddy? Like,
yeah, complete tool. And so I first found this because it was a video from an Asian woman in America talking about how this happens to her quite often. People either say ni hao or konnichiwa just randomly in the street, and they just make a lot of assumptions because they're Asian. And she's like, fucking American, particularly in the States as well. Like they have like this weird casual racism of Asians. Like, it's almost still acceptable that you could be like, during COVID, the amount of hate crimes that there were against Asians was astronomical.
Yeah, but it's also been a history of hate crimes against Asians. It just comes in waves, right? Like in the 1940s, they had the internment camps. Even like Asian-born or American-born Asians were put into these camps because they just had the same look. And it just kind of happens throughout history. I mean, there are some groups that are consistently hated upon, and then it's like Asians just come in these waves. It's like, oh, is it time? Is it time for Asian hate again? It's
It's like, it's that time of the century.
Let's wrestle that up a little bit.
Yeah, it seems to be almost like a universal thing that people are racist against Black people and Jewish people. That seems to be the mainstay of racists, is that like if you're Black African or Jewish, and then that's the one that people kind of consistently look down on and have a lot of stereotypes about. And
then other groups get it whenever Whitey feels like hitting someone new.
But it's not just like the more I've looked into racism in other countries, like it's white people are a problem in our countries because we're the majority, but people are cunts everywhere.
They are. I mean, like even Portugal, right? Like there's if you're on mainland Portugal versus the islands, there's like a hostility there in some parts. Even like the different islands in the Azores, some of them they don't like people from that island, or don't like the people from that island. In any other country, there's always like, oh, you don't want to deal with the northern people or the southern people. Like there's people are racist against their own countrymen.
Yeah.
Just because they live in a certain neighborhood or part of the country.
Yeah. People really let out their true colors, man. I'm telling you.
They always do in a crisis, which so like you watch these movies about like the apocalypse where people band together and you're like, what? It's going to be more like, have you ever seen the movie The Book of Eli?
Yeah, I love it.
Like traps, these like marauding, raping and pillaging groups.
Yeah.
Like that's what
will happen. Yeah, totally.
Or what like Cormac McCarthy, The Road, where you're just like, I just want to make it from point A to point B without getting eaten, please. Thank you.
Yeah. I made the mistake of watching The Road. Like I was going through a period where I was just like quite depressed and stuff, and I was like, I need some apocalypse. The Road was a bit too much. I got halfway through and I was like, whoa, no, this is making me worse. I'm turning this off.
Yeah, I can't imagine how. I mean, I think most people would probably want a feel-good movie when they're depressed.
No, I like to watch movies that match my mood. So like if I'm feeling a bit sort of nihilistic, I'd like to watch something like The Book of Eli or something like that. Just something that's a bit like grungy and shitty. If I'm feeling sort of introverted and a bit autistic and I want to be on my own, I'll watch something like Dune, because like the desert and everything and the sparseness, it's like, oh, that would be so nice.
Interesting.
Yeah. This first one, right? The dad's kind of weaponizing his incompetence a bit. And it's kind of like, I get the impression that the wife is happy with this, but as a bloke watching it, I just kind of think like your wife shouldn't have to do this, basically.
Okay.
But you'll see what I mean. Like even my stepdad, who wasn't like, he never adopted me. He didn't have to like do anything with me in that sense. But even he wouldn't have needed this level of input from my mum for me, basically.
Okay.
Kate's away for the weekend. Did she set me up for success or what? This plate's for Liam for breakfast. 4 chocolate chip pancakes, a juice cup, 2 vitamins. Cook it for a minute. Braden, 4 little pancakes, water bottle. It's there. 30 seconds. Grace, 3 little pancakes, juice cup. 30 seconds. And then we come in here. Clothes, Braden and his bag to take to my mom's. Grace, clothes, bag to take to my mom's. Liam, clothes, bag to take to my mom's. My wife is down with life.
Come on a little journey.
So is he posting this because, like, what is his, is he like, oh, I can't believe she thinks I'm this much of an idiot? Or look how great my wife is for setting all this up for me. Oh.
Yeah, no. So he thinks this is brilliant what's happened here. He thinks like this is the best thing ever. And that he has such a...
Oh, because he's a terrible dad who doesn't even pay attention to his kids and can't figure out how to feed his kids. Like, I get the breakfast, right? Like, make them pancakes for breakfast. He takes vitamins. I get that. Because if he doesn't know, if he's not home during the breakfast routine. But, like, laying out the plates and, like, 4 pancakes, 40 seconds. Here's the one. Like,
yeah.
He's a grown man. He can manage feeding and dressing his children to get them out of the house. Like, and if she doesn't trust him to be able to do that, she needs to address it. But I wonder also, I'm going to go on a rant now. I can feel it. I can feel it coming. He continues to behave this way because she allows him to behave this way, but how much of her wants him to behave this way because it makes her feel important, makes her feel needed, it makes her feel like she's contributing something. If she's like, oh, I gotta do everything by myself, because then she can throw herself up on a cross and be like, oh, everything's so difficult. They wouldn't be able to live without me. They wouldn't be able to manage without me. But then she has set that up because she probably doesn't let him contribute. But then he at no point has said, you know what? Calm your fucking tits. These are my kids too. I could feed them. I could take care of them. So this whole thing, they need to communicate with one another, but she also needs to let him grow up and be a man, and he needs to step up and say, like, listen, I got this, I'm fine. Yeah,
it's almost like a codependency, isn't it? That, you know, you got like, oh, woe is me, I'm the martyr on one end, and then you got like, let's weaponize this incompetence.
I mean, honestly, like, why wouldn't he take advantage of that? Yesterday, my husband and I were sitting around, and I was trying to figure out what to have for lunch, and he was like, I was like, I could go for a fried egg sandwich. He was like, do you want me to make it for you? And I was like, fuck yeah, I do. Because why would I say no to that? I'm perfectly capable of making it myself. But if somebody else is willing to do it for me, yes, thank you. I will take that offer. And that's all he's done. Like, why is he going to say, no, let me put in the effort when she's perfectly willing to put the effort in?
And then the difference here is as well that, like, with your example there from your husband, that's like a really sweet gesture, and how like, oh, I could do something for my wife here, I'll step in. Yeah. And then that's what this guy could have done with the fucking kids. Yeah. And then gone, you go do your thing. I got it. I've got everything for you. The thing is like, when I think about other men and in different families in my life, when I think about the different examples of some blokes weaponizing incompetence and other blokes really stepping up to the plate. So like, one of my uncles, I've got a shit uncle and a good uncle. The shit uncle, his wife went away for like 2 days for a conference. He rings her up at this conference saying, how do I work the microwave? How do I defrost the food that you've already cooked for me before? So she's pre-cooked and frozen all of his meals while she's away, like lunch and dinner. And he doesn't know how to defrost it in the microwave and heat it back up. I saw a video just recently about a guy who was kind of like flexing on the same thing about he doesn't know how to use his washing machine. That he doesn't. And it's like, do men really believe that women are hardwired from birth to know how to use appliances? Because we had to fucking learn too. So when we get a new washing machine, it's not like I plug it into my ass and it downloads all the information and the user manual into my head. I gotta be like, oh, push these buttons. How come men can't figure out, I'm going to look at the microwave. There's a finite amount of buttons. None of them is a self-destruct sequence. There's a finite number of buttons. I'm just going to push a couple of buttons. Usually there's one that says defrost on it. Like, I don't understand. Oh, this fucking guy. This is so difficult. I mean, maybe they think that it's part of that psychic wireless network that all the women are linked up to. Maybe. You go through puberty and your menstrual cycle's the monthly download. That's what it is. They're not actually eggs. Yeah. They're receivers. When we shed our uterine lining every month, it's making way for their upgrade. It's a firmware upgrade. Oh, this is why girls do better than boys at school, is because you've got this head start. It's got to be worth an extra 40 IQ points. Yeah, and that's what menopause is. It's like, all right, you've learned everything you need to learn. You can rest now, ladies. You are now a perfect being. You can now elevate yourself. You're retired. You're a Commodore 64 now. We need to make new model. Maybe it should be more positive. I think of it in terms of enlightenment. Like, you've reached enlightenment, have your menopause. You've earned it. Yeah. Put those feet. Have a hot flash just to remind you where you came from. yeah. Nothing's for free. Honestly, I just don't get it. But and then you juxtapose this guy, right, with my stepdad. I'm sorry if I've spoken about this on the podcast, right? That like when I was 9 or 10 years old, and my mum got lung cancer. And she was in the hospital for weeks. She had to have the operation. In those days, people were in the hospital for a long time. And then it was like an hour and a half drive to the hospital. And then so my stepdad had to look after me and my sister, although I kind of looked after myself. But then, so my stepdad would get up at 5 every morning, go to work in the factory, shifting furniture around and load it onto lorries. Then after like 8-9 hours of that, he'd come home. He'd on his way home, he'd pick my sister up from his parents, and then he'd feed both of us. Then we'd drive over to Cardiff, like an hour and a half drive, go see my mum, hang out with her for like 2 or 3 hours, and then drive home.
Wow.
And he did that 6 nights a week.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was still DJing on Friday and Saturday nights to earn extra money to pay for the petrol. Like, that's a fucking man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. And I wasn't even his kid. Like, I'm not his kid, and he still looked after me.
And this guy can't even look after his own kids.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm surprised there wasn't another plate with like, here's what you should feed yourself. Here's your clothes. Here's your backpack to take to work.
Yeah, yeah. Here's your beers in your cooler.
I could not imagine raising children with someone who was also just a fourth child. Like,
yeah,
the added pressure of that. Like, isn't the whole point of having a partner and raising a family with a partner so that you're doing this together, not so that your partner becomes an additional burden in the household? That's all he is. He may be contributing financially, but he's not contributing anything else. He's just giving her more work.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the reasons why there's a lifetime earnings gap for women compared to men, is part of this social inequality in the child rearing. Because men can be in the office. Like, studies have shown that the people who stay in the office and pretend to do extra hours don't do any extra work. They're just there to show their faces. And that means that they can respond to their boss's needs on short notice. It means their faces around the office. Meantime, their wife has to leave work early and has a very rigid schedule because she has to pick the kids up from school. She has to make them dinner, and it holds her career back. She doesn't get the promotions.
Absolutely. And if like parents, I mean, I know in Canada is very different in terms of like parental leave, but you can get up to a year of parental leave, right? So if a woman is taking that full year off, that's a year of her career that is being tilted. And like what it should be, okay, so the wife is going to take 6 months off, the husband's going to take 6 months off, or whatever, one partner or the other, so they could take care of these kids and then not have such a detrimental effect on their career progression and moving forward, which is, I mean, like, there's a reason why the interview question, are you married? Do you have kids? Are you going to have kids? There's a reason those are illegal, is because like women then weren't being hired because people thought, well, I'm not going to bring this woman into an executive position and just have her fuck off in a year when she's got babies.
Yeah. And this is the thing. So like, I think 2 things need to happen. Is that 1, blokes need to be more ready to step up for child rearing responsibilities. And 2, companies need, like, we're in a technological age now. Companies can do this. And they need to be aware of what women are going to struggle with, particularly single mothers and single fathers too. And the companies could do a lot more to have flexible working so that they can support, that they can raise their children better because they could be there for their kids and they can perform better at work.
Yeah, there's very few jobs. I mean, there's probably not very few jobs, but like a lot of jobs can easily be done remotely where someone can do. And like, I mean, I'm not saying that when someone's like 6 weeks after giving birth is going to be able to dedicate all their time to work, right? But you could have a flexible work arrangement. You can figure it out where I'm going to put in 4 hours. So, or take this extra amount of time off. Like, there's a lot of ways to get about it. I used to work at a company that they called it a non-medical model. So if someone was off sick, we weren't allowed to ask, what's wrong with you? What's your illness? Our only questions were, what are your limitations? What's preventing you from coming back? Can you sit for long periods of time? Can you stand for long? So we figure out how to accommodate. But it was all about accommodating. So if somebody was gone for a few months because they'd been ill, they didn't come back to work on a full-time basis. It's like, okay, we'll bring you back for 3 or 4 hours a day or every other day until you can get back to where you were. But if that person was able to kind of do stuff from home or do other things, then they may have been able to have been productive and been earning for themselves and their family a lot sooner. Like a woman I worked with was off with sciatica, and she was like, it was so bad she could barely get out of bed. That the workplace that we were at sent her at home a whole desk contraption so she could lie down and still do her work. They accommodated that need. So she was contributing to the organization. She was earning for full salary instead of for disability benefits, and like everybody won in that scenario.
Exactly, because humans need to feel productive, especially men as well. Like men with disabilities, there's a lot of office jobs that we could do if the companies were willing to take on autistic people or mentally ill people or people with physical disabilities. If they were willing to, like, you could do job shares, you can do remote working, etc. If they weren't so rigid and married to the old way of doing stuff, they could they could do so much more with their companies. But instead, they're hiking up the prices and gouging the public out of all their hard-earned money.
I think a lot of it also has to do with them not wanting to invest in the accommodations required. But I worked at another call center, and it still bothers me. This is going back to 20. So at the time, they had done about the Canadian workforce of people with disabilities and how represented they were in different companies. So where I worked, it was people with disabilities was like very, very low. Like the percentage was very, very low. So they started this whole push of like hiring people with disabilities so they could get their numbers up. But it wasn't that they were seeking the best people for the job. It was just like, we need to get 10 disabled people. Let's get them. And it was like so gross the way they spoke about it, that we'd be in meetings and they'd be like, we got 2 more. It's like, oh, these are people. Like,
yeah, they're not tokens that you can spend.
Yeah, like you're just trying to fill a quota. Like it's just, it's so, and like, it's amazing that, they're hiring, but you can't really call yourself an equal opportunity employer when you're specifically seeking out, like, we need to get more blind lesbians in here. Like, like,
Well,
this
is the problem with quotas in general. I mean, there's one where the companies are like, oh yeah, 50% of our workforce is women. Aren't we fantastic? And it's like, yeah, but the women, none of them are management, none of them are executives. They're all cleaners and catering.
Yeah.
But you've got no women in your sales staff. You've got nobody earning 200,000 a year as an executive.
It's just numbers. Numbers.
But yeah,
I remember when I was on the phones in a call center, like so often, and it was a collections call center. And like I would answer the phone. It's like, is there a man I can talk to? Nope. What's your manager's name? Jerry. Well, I want to talk to Jerry. All right, I'll get Geraldine on the phone because she goes by what's her boss's name? Denise. Like it's like my boss was a woman, her boss was a woman, her boss was a woman, like going up that chain. But then men would get so bent of like, well, I want to talk to a man. Like, do you really think the bro code is gonna kick in and you're gonna get fucking
this is my bro card.
Yeah, like you owe us money.
Yeah, it ain't gonna happen. All right, so we got another shitty dad next. There is kids in this, but like it's covered up by the text, so you don't actually see the kids.
Let me read what this says. This is what a grown-ass man thinks is appropriate conversations to have with his kids, 6 to 10. He's constantly involving them in things they shouldn't know, even have to worry about. We've been divorced for 5 years, unacceptable, then tries to fight my man in front of his kids, but I'm a bitter BM, right? BM.
I can't put what that means.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the text that has been put on the screen for those who listen. Okay.
Yeah, and we might have to listen to all of it. It is a bit distressing listening to these kids crying, but and also just flashbacks of my childhood. Yeah, no, but honestly, you need to take a giant dump on this bloke. He's a cunt. Anyway.
Listen to this, bro.
This is why I don't like coming. Okay, well, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm not the one who broke this family up. This is why. I'm not the one who decided to separate us. That wasn't my choice. Well, you were the one who chose to cheat on mom. I'm the one that. Yeah. And so what?
So the kid said, but you were the one that cheated on mum.
Yes, they know that their parents are divorced, but I don't think you should need to tell your 6, 8, 10-year-old kid that, oh, daddy cheated on mommy, and this is why. Like, I don't know that they need to know that depth of the marital problems.
Yeah, there is a lot to this, I think.
Well, you had already cheated on her, that you deserve that. I deserve that, bro? You cheated on her twice before. So I deserve to go risk my life every single day to go to work while me and your mom were together in a relationship while she can have a boyfriend living at the house that I pay for?
You shouldn't have cheated on her when you were in Ohio.
When I was in Ohio. When I was in Michigan. I never cheated on your mom in Michigan.
Yes, you did. You cheated twice.
So the kid's accusing him of cheating on their mum in Ohio and Michigan, and he's like, in Michigan? I never cheated on your mum in Michigan. Like, that's not the important point of the conversation, dude.
But then he's blaming the mother. She's the one who broke us up. No, you did when you cheated on her.
Yeah.
And that's like, okay, but somebody has told, she's the one who's posted this, presumably, saying he thinks it's an appropriate conversation to have with a 6 or 10-year-old. But how do these 6 and 10-year-olds know that he cheated on her? He probably didn't tell them. She did, which is also an inappropriate conversation to have with your 10-year-old child.
Well, it's hard to know because that bit wasn't clear. I couldn't figure out where that was. But having been in a home as a kid with the parents arguing about that stuff, I heard a lot of it. So there's a lot of stuff that no one told me or my sister, but we knew about it because they were effing and blinding. So I think that's what happened.
This guy, like, not, and I wish we knew what led to all these tears, because it just started kids being like, this is why we don't want to hang out with you. But that he's not, like, pull over the car, take your kids out, talk to your kids. What's going on? What do you think? How can we fix this? What can I do to make things better? Not just like, well, talk to your bitch mom. She's the one who broke up.
Yeah. It's just that's not what dads are supposed to do. Like,
no, like, if your kids are in distress, you're supposed to try to ease their distress, not to give them more reasons to be distressed, not to just be like, suck it up. Oh, you got your facts wrong. I didn't cheat in Michigan. I cheated in Ohio. Take that.
yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
And
then he wonders why his wife left him.
The whole thing.
He hadn't cheated. He's terrible.
Yeah. The whole thing just sounds so toxic for, like, the whole situation is toxic for those kids.
Yeah,
like the public arguments, the fights.
But that the kids know that they've heard it, that they're that young in age, and they're already like, dad cheated on mom. This is why we don't want to, like, those kids are growing up too fast because their parents are if not intentionally involving them, not intentionally like, hey kids, go outside and play because mom and dad need to fucking fight right now, right? Like, they're not, I don't know. It bothers me when you see kids being used as tools, and it feels like that's what's happening here. These kids are being weaponized against the parent.
Yeah, and like the dad seemed more focused on winning the argument and laying the smack down on these two kids and being like you said, get your facts right. I did this and that. Like, I need to score all these points. And like, he almost sounds like he's enjoying it. Like, you can tell by the tone of his voice. Like, he's not cut up about his kids crying.
No, he's not. We were more upset that his kids were crying than he was.
Yeah.
Like, what a piece of shit.
Yeah. I mean, if you made a kid cry, like, I remember once, right? Like, me and my sister, I'm a lot older than her, like 10 years older than her. So one time I made her cry completely by accident, right? So I was hiding on the stairs, like behind the banister, like you couldn't see it. And then she was like toddling along around the other side. She's like 2 years old. And I jumped out and I went, boom, scared her. Like, she got so scared, she actually jumped off the ground. Like, her whole body left the ground. She screamed really loud and then just burst into tears and just fell on the floor crying. And like, it broke my heart. Like, I'm laughing, but it was like one of those.
When my niece was, I don't know, like 3 or 4, maybe a little bit older, 4 or 5, I was picking her up and spinning her. And then I guess, and she would, like, we'd stop and she would laugh and say again. So I spun her. But I guess this one time I spun her too hard that she kind of like lost her breath a little bit. And when she stopped spinning, she just looked at me and started crying. And that happened, I don't know, 18 years ago. And I still feel fucking terrible about it. Today, I feel terrible about it. And this guy is just like, well, your mom should have left. That's what happens.
Yeah. It's like he's doing this.
But it's not like, I gotta work all day. I gotta do that. You would have had to do that anyway. Like, that's
that doesn't
you're an
stop.
adult.
Just because you've got to go to work and then risk my life, whatever his job is. But it's like, yeah, but everybody goes to work. You know.
Yeah, you're special because you did this.
We all have a cross to bear. Everybody has one. But we still go around our lives trying to be good people and not treat children like shit.
And like, your kids are in the backseat crying and you're just still driving. Like,
yeah, whatever. And then this is a thing, like, those these are such important years for those kids because they're learning the prototypes of how to handle conflict, how to show love and affection, how to deal with difficult people, etc., etc. And then those kids are getting all the wrong prototypes.
Yeah. I saw a video the other day that was actually like probably one of the best examples of parenting I've seen. It was this young girl. I think she was 5 or 6, and she was having this like existential crisis about eating animals. She's like, I really love bacon and chicken. Don't want to eat bacon and chicken. And then her mom and her dad were both like, you make that decision every day. Every day you get to decide what you want to eat. You can figure it out. And it was such a great way of being like, you're the one who's in charge. We're not going to force you to eat it or tell you that you have to. It's you make these decisions. Because I think so many people forget that they're raising future adults. You think they're small and they're cute and they're cuddly, so you treat them that way, but then you're not giving them the skills that they need to move forward as adults, right? And then when they're at like 18, 19, you're like, how come you don't know how to make your own decisions? How come you don't know how to do this? Because you never taught me. But like for them to tell this young 6-year-old girl, every day you get to decide what you're going to eat. If you don't want to eat it, you don't have to eat it. Puts that bit of control, gives her that little bit of autonomy that will help her move forward as an adult. But these kids are learning just gaslight and gaslight, deny.
But my experience of that as a kid with the food thing was one time my stepdad burnt there's like these little chipolata sausage things, whatever they're called. And then he burnt them. They were like just black to a crisp. It was basically more carbon than sausage. And my mum made me sit at the table until I ate all of them. And then because I refused, I was at the dinner table for 4 hours and I fell asleep at the dinner table. She wouldn't let me go until I ate them all.
My family was like, they guilted you into eating more.
Right? So starving people in X country.
No, not that kind of guilt. Not that kind of guilt. Oh, they don't care about starving people in other countries. It was the, oh, you don't like my food.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Like, I can't even think of the English word for it. I can hear it in Portuguese, but it's kind of like, are you disgusted by it or you don't want to touch it? Like, it's one of those. And it's like, that was very prevalent. Like my husband, when we first started dating, he would come to meals and he would like load up his plate. And then my mom and my grandmother would be like, give him more food, give him more food. I'm like, he'll eat if he wants to.
Enough.
He didn't like it. I'm like, he ate a plate full of food. He's full. Like,
you can't force more in.
Yeah, but they're like, oh, he didn't like it. He didn't like our food. He didn't try any of that. He didn't like it. So that's the kind of guilt that we would get, which is probably why we were all fat.
You can't stop and say no. You can't take that control and that agency of going, no, I feel full, and it's going to mess with your brain. That your brain's not going to learn what feeling full is.
And there are some people who have, like, there's someone that I talked to once after I had lost my weight. We were talking about losing weight. She wanted to lose weight as well, and she says that because she grew up with a lot of like empty cupboards in the house, she has a lot of food anxiety, that she cannot handle feeling the slightest bit of hunger. Like, it stresses her out that as soon as she feels hungry, she has to eat because she cannot mentally process the feeling of being hungry. And like, one of the things when I was losing weight was kind of like, it's okay to be a little bit hungry, just like it's okay to be a little bit thirsty, right? Like, as soon as you feel thirst, you don't have to guzzle a gallon of water. You just take a couple sips, you're not thirsty anymore. But I think a lot of people who grew up without regular access to food start to feel that anxiety. So then it fucks them up when they're later, because then they just don't develop this healthy relationship with food.
I think that one of the things I think has been an absolute godsend for me is I'm not an anxious or nervous person. Though, like, I've never felt anxiety, and I've thanked my lucky stars for that, because I think anxiety fucks people up so much. Like, if you've had the kind of childhood where you were made to feel anxious, and then it's such a horrible visceral feeling for a small child to have, that it just guides so many of your decisions as you grow up. The hunger thing I find interesting, because with the cats, like Hermione, she's a petite cat, so she never grew into a full big cat. She's like a forever kitten, and because they grew up as ferals, they have that food anxiety. So for years they would think that every meal they get could be their last for a while. So they shovel it all down, and then they mouth at you, they want more. But Hermione, because she's a little cat, but she thinks like a normal cat, so she thinks she's bigger than she is, and so she eats her food really, really, really quickly, and then 20 minutes later throws it all up. And then she did that for years. And then like one of us would have to sit with her. We'd have to move the plate a little bit just to slow her down or stroke her to get her to calm down a bit and just stop her just shoveling it all in.
With Gozer, when he was a puppy, he was the same. And they have these like special dishes for like slow feeders that kind of put these nooks and crannies in it. So it slows them. Yeah, so it worked really well for him because he had to work harder to get at it. He couldn't just shovel it in. But now we have snuffle mats for them.
Snuffle mats.
Snuffle mats are, so it's like this felt, the one we have is like felt mat, but it has like little pockets in it and little like felt cups and like this big design in the middle that you hide the food under the folds of the felt and under these little stuff. So then it tires them out. Like they have I think studies have shown that like 10 minutes in a snuffle mat tires them out as much as like an hour-long walk. But it also kind of satisfies their prey drive. Like Zool is very prey driven because of her breed, that like when we put food in the snuffle mat, she is never happier. The entire time she's digging around it to get food, her tail's wagging and she's like super
I'm gonna have to look into that for the cats, but with the slow feeders, I don't think that would work with the cats because they get whisker fatigue, so they can't like get into the But the snuffle mat might be better. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, they're super. They've got like a ton of different varieties of them, and like they even have different levels of complexity where there's like little puzzles that the dogs need to figure out to get their food.
Yeah, because it's really hard with Padme because she didn't have a kittenhood from a very early age. She was raising Hermione and protecting her, so she doesn't really know how to play. Yeah, it's so cute. She gets like she sits there watching the toy, really wanting to play with it, and you're flicking it back and forth, but she just like pats it and then runs off. Yeah, she plays with laser dots. She's good with laser dots, but when it comes to somebody waggling a toy in front of her, she can't do it. I can't remember what my point was now. Padme distracted me with her cuteness.
Places any to fade to black.
Yeah. Oh,